So the Dallas Cowboys now have their opponents set for 2021, and now as we look at it, things might not be very easy for them next year. We'll go through the schedule, we'll talk about how I feel about each of these opponents and where I think those opponents stand, and just overall how I think the Cowboys might fare in 2021 with this early outlook. Now before we get into that, if you guys could, please make sure to drop a like on this video. It helps the channel out a lot, makes a massive difference. Also, if you're new here, by all means, subscribe to the channel to receive more Dallas Cowboys content from me in the future. And most importantly, hit that notification bell, because by hitting that notification bell, you will be notified when I go live or post new content. Now, with that out of the way, here we go. We got to talk about this schedule for 2021. Now, obviously, there isn't a set schedule yet. We just know who we're playing. We just don't know when we're playing them. Now, obviously, you're playing your NFC East opponents in Washington, the Giants, and Philadelphia. And the way I look at how this division is right now, I believe that if you have a healthy Dak Prescott, you will win the division. I do believe Dallas will win the division next year, but not because they'll dominate. I just think it's by default. Philadelphia's got to go into a hard rebuild, and they're probably going to just be trying to put some pieces together. The Giants, they might be in the same token. It really comes down to their quarterback. And all these guys, Washington, if Alex Smith is healthy, they're a very hard team to beat. They have the best defense, in my opinion, in the entire NFC East. And that defensive line is just unstoppable. And with Chase Young on that defensive line, he really puts it over the top. So the way I look at it is Washington's your biggest threat, followed by, if the Giants have good quarterback play, them, and then Philadelphia last, because they're just a mess right now. So that's how I would structure it. And if you were to ask me how I feel going into this year, I do think Dallas should at minimum go 4-2 in the division. The way I look at it is that you should be able to, the one team you might struggle with is, again, Washington, but I do think that Dallas, with a fully healthy offensive line and just up to full strength, even if it's at 80%, can beat these teams. So the problem with the Cowboys, I think, lies with the remainder of their schedule. They got to play the NFC South, the AFC West, and then they have two intra-conference games and one inter-conference game. So to start things off with the NFC South, Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay. Now, they've already played Atlanta this year, and they did beat them in their miraculous comeback. Now, the thing is with Atlanta, I don't know what they're going to look like next year, because their core, I do believe, is going to end up needing to be, shaken up. And you should be able to beat Atlanta, but Atlanta's a weird team to where they can just, if they get on their A game, they're tough to beat. But I don't think Atlanta is going to do particularly well next season, especially with the core they have. They have to move on from that, and they got to rebuild. So I would put them in the same token as Philadelphia, but they have somewhat better play. It's kind of hard for me to gauge, because I feel like Atlanta is in the same token as Philly, but I think with Atlanta, they have a core of players set. It's just that core isn't particularly winning games. Next is Carolina. I think Carolina is going in the right direction. I think they just need more pieces. So this is another team that could challenge you next year. And luckily, these are two teams you're playing at home. So these should be, home games that you should be able to win, but they aren't particularly easy. However, you have two really tough road games, and that is with New Orleans and Tampa Bay. The reason I say that is because it's very hard to win in New Orleans. The Cowboys haven't won in New Orleans, I believe, since 2009. Now, for Tampa Bay, they're tough to beat too, because these two teams, what they have in common is they have very good offenses. Now, for me, this is what it comes down to. They have two aging quarterbacks. If Drew Brees doesn't come back next year, I think New Orleans will be a little bit easier to manage, but they do have a tough defense, and they have a really good running game. As for Tampa Bay, I think with Tampa Bay, and I believe he is coming back next year, Tom Brady, they're going to be tough to beat too. It's just the way I look at it is that if you were to ask me how I think we would do, I would say you should be able to go 2-2, at worst 1-3, with the NFC South. So if I'm just saying like bare minimum. So if you do the 4-2 in the division, and then you add the 2-2, you're already at 6-4. Then you move over to the AFC West. Now the AFC West, I think it opens up a bit because you have the Vegas Raiders and Denver Broncos at home. And to be honest with you, I think Denver, they've not been a good team. They've yet to find a quarterback. They have solid pieces on the defense, and they have some guys on offense. But overall, they're just a team that doesn't have a direction, in my opinion. As for LA, they have a direction, and they've been getting solid and better every single year. But now they're just kind of mediocre. So the way I look at it is that it's the same like the NFC South. You should be able to take care of business at home. On the road, it's a different story. Kansas City. Kansas City is very hard to beat. That's for sure. And I think, again, the last time that we won in Kansas City was 2009. And now that they have Patrick Mahomes and they are very well coached, that's a loss in my opinion. And then as for LA, the thing with LA is it depends on their head coach. Now, there is reports that Jason Garrett might get hired there. And for me, the thing with the Chargers is that they're good, but they just need to get some screws tightened. They have a really good roster. I like, Justin Herbert. I was completely wrong on him. But if it were up to me, I think Dallas can manage to beat the Chargers. But that's the toss-up game. You got to be careful because the Chargers are close to, actually being good. So if you were to say, like, what would be the bare minimum? 2-2, I think. But we'll just say, because I feel like with the Chargers, it depends on who they hire at their head coach. So let's just say 3-1. So right now that puts you at 9-5. Yeah, 9-5. Now keep in mind, the reason why this is going to be weird is because the NFL is still not set on adding a 17th game, but they probably will. So you have 3 more games remaining. And that is Arizona, Minnesota, and New England. Now, what all these teams have in common, or rather, what happened this year is they're all mediocre. I think New England, they definitely need a quarterback. They need to find that right guy. Because without Tom Brady, or without, hell, even someone that can just play decently, they've been terrible. I don't know if they bring back Cam Newton. And keep in mind, New England would be the game that would be the 17th game. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to just put it on an island. But I would say you should be able to take care of New England, but they've yet to determine if it's at home or away. But you should be able to take care of New England, especially if they don't take care of the quarterback situation. But they'll be tough, because they had a lot of defensive starters missing, and they were 7-9. So there's that. But the two teams that are on your schedule are Arizona and Minnesota. Now, you'd play Minnesota again on the road and Arizona at home again. So you're facing these two teams again next year. I don't think Arizona's going to beat the crap out of Dallas next year, but they're going to be a tough team to beat. And I really find it hard to see Dallas really beating Arizona, especially if Kyler Murray continues to improve. And now that they got DeAndre Hopkins, and if they can boost up that secondary, they're going to be a tough team next year. So I don't think we'll win that game. As for Minnesota, Minnesota's in a mediocre state right now of like, okay, they're a good team to barely miss out on the playoffs, but they're not bad enough to get a good draft pick. So you should be able to take care of business versus Minnesota. So if that puts you at 1-1, that maybe puts you at 10-6, which I do see Dallas going 10-6 next year, or 9-7. But obviously that's depending on health. But if they add a 7th game, I do see them winning that game. So that means that would put them over the 10-win threshold. Either they're 10-7 or they're 11-6, which is weird to say. But I mean, they have the key takeaways as I just recap what's going on is that on paper, it's a fairly soft schedule. I mean, you only have 3 teams that have a winning record in 2020, and ironically, all 3 are on the road. But I don't think people should be looking at next year and saying this team's going to win a Super Bowl next year, because I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that Dallas will definitely win the division next year, but I'm not going to sit here and say 12-4 and 13-3. No, I think that Dallas will win between 9 to 11 games, and that's if everyone's healthy. If Dak's good to go, I think this team is an instant contender to make the playoffs, not a Super Bowl contender, because the roster needs some overhauling. So those are my little brief thoughts on next year's opponents. If you like what you heard, well, some of you might not like what you had to hear, but by all means, down in the comment section below, put down what you believe Dallas will do next year, and I can't wait to see how that looks. So put how many wins you think they're going to get as of right now. But yeah, to reiterate, I'm thinking between 9 to 11 wins, especially if everyone's healthy. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Once again, if you could leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, that'd be great, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.